Does the Quran promote polygamy? And does it demand a humiliating tax from Jews and Christians? Both claims circulate widely. Today we look at what the text actually says and what it meant in context. Quran 4:3 and 929. Part 1, Quran 4:3. Here is the transliteration of verse 4:3. وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تُقْسِطُوا فَوَنَارَ الْيَتَامَى فَانكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَثَ وَرُبَاعَ فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدَةً أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ ذَلِكَ أَدْنَىٰ أَلَّا تَعُولُوا. The most common English rendering of this verse is, if you fear that you will not deal justly with orphan girls, then marry women of your choice, 2, 3, or 4. But if you fear you will not be just, then only one. Most people never hear the first half, the orphans, only the permission for multiple wives. That omission is the source of most of the misunderstanding. The verse opens not with a statement about marriage, but with a statement about orphans. That opening word, yatama, meaning orphans, is the key to understanding everything that follows. Surah An-Nisa was revealed in the aftermath of the Battle of Uhud in 625 CE, a battle in which a significant number of Muslim men were killed, leaving behind widows and orphan children. The verse addresses guardians who were tempted to marry orphan girls under their care in order to control their inheritance, without treating them fairly. The permission to marry multiple women is presented as an alternative to exploiting orphans, not as an ideal arrangement. Read the opening again. If you fear that you will not deal justly with orphan girls, then marry women of your choice. The permission is conditional from the very first word. The verse contains a critical condition using the root dl, to be just, equitable, fair. The same root as the Arabic word for justice, adl. The permission to marry up to 4 women is immediately qualified, but if you fear you will not be just, then only one. And then, just 3 verses later, in 4:129, the Quran states plainly, you will never be able to be just between wives, even if you are eager to be so. Read together, 4, 3, and 4:129 form a logical sequence. You may marry up to 4, but only if you are just, and you will never fully be just. Many contemporary Muslim scholars argue that these 2 verses together effectively make monogamy the Quranic ideal, with polygamy permitted only as a regulated exception. Here is how 6 translators handle the opening condition. The reference to orphans. Pickthall. If ye fear that ye cannot do justice to the orphans, marry of the women. 2, 3, or 4. Yusuf Ali. If ye fear that ye shall not be able to deal justly with the orphans, marry women of your choice. Sahih International. If you fear that you will not be just to the orphan girls, then marry those that please you. Muhammad Asad. If you have reason to fear that you might not act equitably towards orphans, then marry. Abdul Halim. If you fear you cannot be fair to orphan girls if you marry them, marry other women who seem good to you. Khattab. If you fear you might fail to give orphan women their rights, then marry other women you see fit. Every translation preserves the conditional structure. The Quran is not saying, take up to 4 wives. It is saying, if you cannot treat orphans justly, here is a regulated alternative, but only if you can be fair. Polygamy is legally prohibited in most Muslim-majority countries today, including Tunisia, Turkey, and several Central Asian nations. Where it remains legal, it is typically subject to strict conditions, including court approval and proof of financial capacity. The broad consensus is that the Quranic conditions for polygamy, absolute justice between wives, are effectively impossible to meet in practice. Quran 9:29. Now to Quran 9:29. The transliteration reads, Qatilu lashna la yuminuna billahi wala bil yawmil akhiri wala yuharrimuna ma harrama Allahu wa rasuluhu wala yad'ununa duna al-haqqi min alladhana utul kitaba hatta yu'tul jizyata an yadin wa hum saghirun. The most common English rendering of this verse is, fight those who do not believe in God or the last day among the people of the book until they pay the jizya willingly while they are humbled. That word, humbled, is where most of the controversy sits. Let us look at it carefully. This verse is cited as proof that Islam demands the subjugation and humiliation of Jews and Christians. The two key words are jizya, a tax, and sagirun, often translated as humbled or subdued. Let us look at both carefully. The jizya was a per capita tax levied on non-Muslim subjects of an Islamic state in exchange for protection and exemption from military service. It was not unique to Islam. The Byzantine Empire levied similar taxes on non-Christian subjects. The Persian Sassanid Empire had equivalent systems. The Roman fiscus Judaicus taxed Jews specifically after the destruction of the temple. The jizya replaced the military service obligation that Muslims bore. Non-Muslim subjects paid a tax instead of fighting in the army. The word sagirun is more contested. Its root sigr means small, humble, subdued. Some classical scholars interpreted it to require a humiliating collection ceremony. Others, including Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, argued it simply meant being subject to Islamic governance, with no requirement for humiliating ceremony. Now look at how translators handle sagirun, the word that determines whether the verse sounds like humiliation or political submission. Pickthall. Until they pay the tribute readily, being brought low. Yusuf Ali. Until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. Sahih International. Until they give the jizya willingly while they are humbled. Muhammad Asad. Until they pay the exemption tax with a willing hand after having been humbled. Abdul Halim. Kuri and pay the tax and agree to submit. Khattab. Until they pay the tax willingly while being in a state of submission. The older translations emphasize humiliation. Brought low, feel subdued, humbled. Abdul Halim's more recent translation shifts the emphasis significantly. Agree to submit, framing the word as a political rather than personal state. This is not a trivial difference. Within the classical Islamic legal framework, the jizya system came with reciprocal obligations on the Muslim state. Non-Muslim subjects, called dhimmis, were owed protection of their lives, property, places of worship, and internal legal autonomy. The Caliph Umar is reported to have waived the jizya for elderly and disabled Christians who could not pay, and to have allocated state funds for their support instead. The jizya as a legal institution has been abolished in virtually every Muslim majority country. The Ottoman Empire formally ended it in 1856 as part of the Tanzimat reforms, replacing it with universal taxation and equal citizenship. Ottoman scholars understood this not as a betrayal of Islam, but as an application of Islamic principles of justice to a changed political reality. Contemporary Muslim scholars argue that the jizya was a historically specific legal arrangement for a pre-modern state structure, and that its underlying principle, the protection of religious minorities within a Muslim-governed society, is better served today by equal citizenship and constitutional rights than by a differential tax system. Two verses about social order. One addressing the protection of vulnerable women, one addressing the governance of religious minorities. Both were responses to specific historical circumstances. Verse 4:3 does not promote polygamy. It regulates a social emergency with a conditional permission that the same Quran immediately qualifies almost to the point of impossibility. Verse 929 established a tax system that has since been abolished across the Muslim world, replaced by the principle of equal citizenship. Context doesn't excuse everything, but it explains a great deal. Sources are linked below. Subscribe for the next episode.